Hi, folks. Welcome to episode 18 of Tola and Filippo's Poetry Balls podcast. I am Tola, and on this episode, I have a conversation with Rory Ryan, the co-founder and chief product officer of ZiO Health. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Hi, Tola.
How you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. How are you?
You're the second person that I've interviewed that's gone straight to video, so I'm going to be polite this time around and do the same thing.
Good. Well, good. Yeah, good to virtually meet you.
Good to virtually meet you. Your name is Rory Ryan. Where are you from? Where are you from?
Yeah. So my background. So I guess I'm coming from a very large Irish family. So very large. Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed actually.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking Nordic, like from Norway, maybe.
Yeah, actually, so the original name, Rory is an anglicized version of the Irish name Rudry, and then my last name Ryan is an anglicized version of Orion, which is the Irish name. So I guess, my family, I guess, over the last 100 years.
So are you predominantly Irish on both sides, or is your mom English? Is your dad Irish, or?
So actually on both sides. So my mom was born in England, but actually her family are from the west coast of Ireland. So they're from Connemara and Galway, which is famous for poetry, famous for the landscapes and the arts and culture there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then my dad.
Yeah,
Well, I was just going to say, my dad as well is also from the same area. So,
Interesting.
He grew up. He was born in Galway City, and so I've got lots of family over there. Yeah.
Excellent. I was reading about the Irish the other day for some reason. I have to say this actually. The Irish are probably the friendliest people on the planet. Like, I met an Irish guy a few years ago, and he would light up a room. I don't care who you are. Like, he would just light up a room. And that's been my experience with every Irish person I've met. So when we got talking on LinkedIn, I could sense they were very polite. I could tell they were very open. I just said, okay, this guy seems like a really cool guy. So this could be a really good interview. What sort of kid were you?
So I was quite shy. When I was very young, but I've always had like an inventor's mind. So I've always had passion for building things. I literally would spend my time after school in the garden shed picking up elastic bands and bits and pieces from the garden and constructing stuff. And I was really fascinated about building all kinds of gadgets and things to kind of advance, human ability, and that actually got me into health tech. So I funny enough, I actually, my first taste of it was doing some research for a robotic prosthetics company, because I, as a kid, always loved, I thought it was fascinating, robotic arms, robotic prosthetics, and then later on, focused on that when I was doing my engineering degree, and then that got me into health tech.
Yeah, I was going to say, so obviously a very curious kid, shyness, so a little introverted probably.
Yeah, certainly when I was younger. Yeah.
So your undergrad was in what exactly? Was it engineering or?
Yeah, my undergrad was, so I studied mechanical engineering, which only because it was the most general kind. I've always been hugely creative. My mum's a portrait painter, and I grew up in this house. I grew up in this very creative house, and have always found myself on that kind of borderline between the
arts and the sciences.
Yeah, arts and sciences, and then I think. Can I say arts and sciences and business almost? I've always had, that kind of these three different kind of different angles of
approaching your problem solving, basically.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, problem solving. Yeah, and the need to express myself and to fill some kind of creative potential somehow. So. Yeah.
Excellent. So you were at Imperial 5 years ago. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I started the IEM Innovation Entrepreneurship Management degree in 2015, and finished in 2016. And the way Imperial works is, you obviously graduate a year after. So I graduated in 2017.
2017, yeah. I think I was about a year just before you. So I was 2013, 2014. So maybe exactly. So you're 14, 15. Okay, so you're about a year after me.
Right.
How did you enjoy it?
I thought it was fantastic. So I kind of mentioned already, I was very specifically looking to build a company. Wasn't really sure about needing or wanting any more kind of academic knowledge, basically. But I knew I wanted to connect with people, and I heard that Imperial was just a great place of super bright people. And I ended up first. I actually applied for the IEM course and then turned it down. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is the best thing. Yeah, so I basically applied for it, and then I think I was offered a place, and then I thought, I don't think this is quite for me. And then what I did, I actually signed up to a summer course at Imperial instead, and I thought, I'll do this. This is probably going to be quite interesting. And so I did basically an entrepreneurial smart camp, I think it was called, and it was absolutely fantastic. So I don't know what I was expecting, but the moment I arrived into that lecture theatre, there were so many super switched on people from such a diverse background, very multicultural as well. And there was such energy, and I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And I pretty much made my decision after doing that, I'm going to call them back up and get my place back. So that's what I did. And luckily they still had a place available, and I'd been kind of through that beginning process, and then I was accepted onto the course, basically.
Excellent.
And that was it.
Excellent. So if you hadn't gone onto the IEM course, what would have been the alternative route for you?
That's a good question. So I had been working just before with a friend on a web development company, like trying to set up a company. Actually, it was kind of very straightforward. It was to develop websites for kind of high street retail shops that hadn't, that needed a bit of a facelift on their website. So it was
sure.
So I was kind of doing that in a little bit of an interim period. And to be honest, I think, I knew my strategy was to try to connect with more scientists and domain experts like doctors. I'd already been working for quite a few years and trying to come up with a really meaningful idea, a business idea, and had tried quite a variety of different things. I'd even for 6 months had every day I'd write at least one new business idea. So I tried a whole variety of different things, and but then I kind of realized that I need to be partnering with people that have complementary skills to me. I'm great at some stuff and not great at other stuff, and I need to particularly to build something high tech, or particularly in the area of a deep science startup.
Right.
I need to find people who can do that with me. So, so actually, if I hadn't have done that via Imperial, I think probably, what I was doing is I was networking throughout London. I even effectively was selected for a health policy think tank, and I kind of did that for networking, and met a whole load of very switched on people in that group. And that was my strategy, basically, network all around London. I'd kind of hadn't really lived in London for any long period of time before that. So it was all about networking and thinking about what's the best approach for that.
We will be right back.
It's something I'm quite lucky. I've always been very creative and also been highly motivated. And so I find it very easy for myself to kind of think of an idea and then structure that into my routine and kind of slowly, piece by piece, add a few hours each day for quite consistently for a few months, and then a few months later you've got something. That hasn't always worked. I did try my hand at writing a short novella before, which I did for 6 months, but it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
I doubt that. You're Irish. You must have been exceptional to some degree.
It was really terrible. It was a terrible book. What
was it called?
It was called Spoon. So it was.
I love it already.
Actually, it's quite Irish, isn't it? Spoon. People love playing the spoons in Ireland, don't they? So what it was, I was going through this period where I was having very detailed, imaginative dreams, and was recording down my dreams over quite I'd kind of wake up and have come out of a dream that was very story-like with beginning, middle, and end, kind of a rough plot almost, and would and kind of write those down, and then I thought to myself, I'll it would be fantastic, one day I'll be able to write these into a book. And then it kind of just came up, this opportunity to I thought, well, why not just try it now? And so I did try, and it was terrible. So but
how did you gauge that? Did you share with friends? Did you?
I did. Yeah, so I did. Yeah, I shared with a few trusted friends, and to be honest, I could kind of tell myself, because I suppose I'm also guilty of being slightly over optimistic sometimes, or slightly over ambitious sometimes, and I kind of thought I'd be able to work through it a bit quicker than it did actually take. So I think by halfway through, it was 3 months in, I thought, right, this is actually getting quite long now. I'm kind of halfway through this book, and there's lots of other things I want to be doing as well. So I kind of bashed out the final 3 months. So it gets kind of worse towards the end of the book, I must say.
Oh my gosh! Right.
Point, maybe touch it up or. Well, yeah, we'll see. So,
did you ever suffer from the complexity of having so many different ideas and not knowing what to focus on? Because you're an engineer who wrote a novella, who's now, the founder of a health company, basically, biotech company. Did you ever suffer from that then of, what do I focus on? Where do I focus my energies on? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I think, it's something I've definitely struggled with previously, having, so many different ideas I want to do all at the same time. But I think that when I started this health tech company, when I started ZiO Health, I had been working towards building a high-tech company for quite a long time. And so by that point, I was very focused. This was my goal. This is what I was going to do. And I was going to, I literally had a goal for a year, that I was going to, within a year, I was going to set up this company. And I was very honed in on that. And So I am able to, I guess, hone in my focus when needed, and for the last 5 years now, this has been my focus. I've got a very clear goal of where I want the company to go, and it feels like I've been building up to this almost my whole life. It sounds quite dramatic, but I feel all these small tinkerings in the garden shed with elastic bands and lollipop sticks has always been kind of teaching me various different things. I've been building up towards this, and I feel like I'm kind of getting there and have a clear idea of where I want the company to go and how to grow. So I think having that vision has helped my creative ideas side to keep in check.
Yeah, excellent. So as an engineer, you decided to start a biohealth company. Why health exactly? Why that sector?
Yes, I mean, that's a good question. I think so it does come, I think, a lot back to my childhood, where I was really passionate about advancing the humankind in some way.
Wow.
But that's the kind of the dramatic way of saying it. The reality was I just loved superheroes. So,
okay. Who's your favorite superhero?
Yeah. So, love Spider-Man. Absolutely fantastic. Batman as well. I loved trying to produce different gadgets I think there's kind of no other way of saying it other than that were fun and cool, but also did change how we interact with the world somehow. I've got a very specific memory where I basically went through a phase when I was younger, where every Christmas I would ask Father Christmas to make me be able to fly, right? And I even tried to barter. I even would make kind of things and offer them at Christmas to try to see if he'll get on his good books. But when that failed, I actually went through this phase where I would actually try to build these kind of flying contraptions so basically I've got, and it's I'm quite lucky actually, because I've got all these drawings from all of this kind of age that I've somehow kept in this book. And so I went through this phase. I think it was about age 10 or something like that, and I tried to build these kind of flying contraptions, which of course would never work, but I would strap them on my back. I get on a bicycle and then try to cycle down the hill as fast as I could. And so I've got a very specific memory of one time when there was a group of teenagers sitting on the grass in this park, laughing their heads off, while there's me on this bicycle with some kind of corrugated card and umbrella on my back. But anyway, it was. I think it was always kind of part of that, and then, like I said, that really got me into robotic arms and prosthetics, and how we could build tools to really help people in that space. And then from there, I got interested into kind of health tech generally, and how we can build tools to kind of help ourselves in various different ways. And I think that's the thing with health technology and health companies is, in some ways they're like social enterprises, because it's not necessarily just profits driven. You're driven to make to really benefit society in different ways, through the development of in our case diagnostics. So
that's That's incredible. As you were talking about your drawings and the fine contraptions, I mean, my mind went directly to Da Vinci. Not surprisingly, because he did a lot of that, and he also did a lot of, I think, biological drawings. You know, parts of the body, that sort of thing. And you've similarly gone down the path of, I suppose, channeling your creativity and your technical know-how into doing something for the betterment of mankind, which is also incredible. What is the long-term vision of ZiO Health?
So, so I see that. I mean, where we're currently at in society is we're on the road to better preventing ourselves from becoming sick and ill in the future. So we've kind of been in this period of very, caring for, for sickness or illness once it's already arrived. You kind of diagnose things after you've developed the symptoms, right? So and you can kind of, you can see this trend over the past, it's probably 20 years or so, maybe longer than that, of companies focusing on trying to deliver solutions that can prevent sickness before it even arrives, before you get people into the right lifestyle changes, and therefore you're mitigating the development of any sickness far earlier, and that's advantageous for various different reasons, and a much more cost efficient way of dealing with like rising chronic conditions, etc. So the way I see ZiO working is it's kind of one of these first companies in this space where we're trying to empower people in their own homes or wherever they are at the point of need. It could be up, some remote testing up a mountain somewhere, or it could be, the doctor themselves could be, carrying one of these devices and being able to test, blood or saliva or different bodily fluids very, very quickly. And they're therefore able to access, health information much more quickly and maybe able to make much more informed decisions more quickly. And so, and so if they're able to utilize these kind of portable devices, they're able to generate a far bigger picture over their health, if it's themselves at home or their patients, if they're in a hospital. They're able to build far bigger pictures of these individuals over a greater period of time. And I think what's going to be quite interesting is seeing how all of this data will combine or can be combined with other data sets to potentially develop better treatments or more personalized treatments in the future, and and really kind of shift society to more of a preventative healthcare system. So yeah, I see ZiO Health as being a really key part of that.
How did you come up with that name? Because it's quite a unique name.
It is actually, yeah. So to be honest with you, what happened was me and one of my co-founders, Neil, who's the doctor. So we had a looming deadline for a competition. And basically, we'd kind of be working already together, but hadn't finalized the name. And so it was probably, I don't know, a few minutes before midnight or whatever the deadline was of this competition. And we were talking over WhatsApp, sharing different ideas for a company name. And this was just a name I came up with, sent it across to Neil, and Neil from a list was like, yeah, this one sounds good, so ZiO Health. But the funny part about it was that because we decided it and we were speaking over WhatsApp, it wasn't until like a little while later that we realized we were both calling it a different name. So I had been calling it ZiO Health right? And he had been calling it ZiO Health. So so it was only like when we kind of later realized, what is it? How do you call it? So it's something that we still now get kind of frequently asked. And so, so now we call it ZiO Health. Yeah.
So it's ZiO Health. Okay. I thought as much. Okay. I mean, I'm sure you get this a lot. It's obviously a very brave thing to go into the health, I suppose, the biotech industry regarding health, because we all know the story of Theranos. Does that play at the back of your mind? Does that give you nightmares? What do you do to mitigate against?
It's a very good question. Yeah, very good question. It was quite interesting for us because we started in 2015, and so we were so we were kind of starting when we came across this amazing company Theranos in the US. We're thinking, oh wow, these guys sound just amazing. And then of course in 2016 when the Wall Street Journal published their that piece which kind of revealed the fraud going on behind them, it all came crashing down. So it's quite interesting seeing that whole journey, and it has definitely cast a shadow on the whole diagnostics industry. And it's something that we're always asked by basically everyone. Investors always ask us, and so I think it just shows. I think it's a good lesson to everyone that in my industry, in diagnostics and biotechnology, you cannot apply the same mentality as maybe the software industry, which is fake it till you make it. In our type of industry, the technology is just too sophisticated. It's software you can build a new app, a new website, a new product, in a matter of weeks or months. It's taken us 5 years, and that's we've got teams of scientists and engineers doing experiments every day, thousands or tens of thousands of experiments, and so you just can't rush these things. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons. I think the other thing as well is just being. I think the other thing as well is being kind of smart in your strategy. Elizabeth Holmes, the CEO of Theranos, so she was very focused on trying to remove needles from the whole of the laboratory blood testing process. That's what it was almost like that was her focus, her mission, and she wanted to do that by, instead of using the typical long needle to extract blood from your vein, she wanted to use a finger prick blood drop,
Yeah.
and then from that blood drop test 150 or whatever it was different parameters in that finger prick of blood, and she was very fixed on trying to achieve that. We have never been focused on that as our mission. We're not trying to test 100 different things in one blood drop. What we're focused on doing is trying to make portable devices. So she was focused on laboratory machines and the laboratory kind of business model of walk-in blood tests. And so that kind of 100 tests in one finger prick of blood is quite important in that type of model. For us, we're making devices that you can use at home. So you can actually do tests far more frequently. And what that means is if you're able to do tests far more frequently, we don't have that technological challenge of trying to test 100 different things in one drop of blood, because you can kind of test things more frequently. So, for us, we'd be testing, it could be 5 or 10 different things in, a drop of blood, which is far more achievable. And
yeah, I want to ask actually, because there's one thing to tackle a difficult problem, which is what she tried to do. There's nothing to go about it the way she did, right?
Exactly.
So as someone in the industry, is it a difficult is it mission impossible to try to do that, or is it better to just do something that's, like you said, achievable or scalable? Like, what was the problem with her? I suppose her goal.
I think you have to allow a level of flexibility in your strategy. You in some ways, we are a technology push company. So we've built a platform technology, and then we have to find what are the applications it's most suited to. And she almost went about it in this other approach, which is she had a very clear idea of what she wanted to achieve, and then she just kept over delivering in terms of the promises made to investors and people in society. And I think it was this kind of egotistical unwillingness to adapt to what was actually feasible, to listen to her scientific advisors, and listen to her team, and this arrogance from her that she would kind of, if she could just overpromise and raise enough money, she would just get there. But people have been working. The diagnostics industry is absolutely massive, like many other industries. So there's so many different technologies all around the world that people are working on, and some very established big industry players in it. And what she was trying to do, she was using a traditional technology and trying to shrink it down. So she was using these existing machines, and her science team were trying to automate and shrink down this technology so it could test as accurately in a blood drop, but it just wasn't impossible. Now,
so my question for that is it possible to do that? Let's take aside the ego and the arrogance and is it possible to actually achieve that goal? Like with what you guys are doing, exactly like what you're doing, you've made strides, I assume.
So effectively, from my knowledge, being able to test, the 100 different parameters or whatever it was in one blood drop is not possible, and it might be in the future.
Right.
Yeah. So it might be in the future, but it isn't. No, because to test each of those different parameters, you need a certain volume of blood to be able to do that, to be able to ensure you have accurate test results. But her goal is to try to do it with one drop of blood, which it's just not it's not possible yet, at least.
No.
Yeah. So maybe in the future, and I think that's the thing. So they were also, the key point is as well that they were using a traditional technology. What we've been developing the last 5 years is a new technology, and this effectively this technology it's a very new technology. I mean, I could kind of mention it briefly, but we use effectively we design DNA to capture different target molecules inside of the blood or inside of the saliva. So we can design the DNA itself, and it's kind of like a little fishing hook, right? So we can design the DNA, we can design these different fishing hooks to capture different molecules that we want, and we can design them so they will only capture this molecule, or they'll only capture this molecule. And then what we do is effectively we've got this DNA in our electronic device, which can run an electrical signal through it. So this is a new approach, and they've effectively used another technology that's been around for probably 50 years or longer, and our technology has been largely it's probably about 10, 20 years old, and only now we're one of the first companies to kind of commercialize this, and a lot of our patents have been around how can this technology be commercialized and accurately perform in portable devices.
Right. So I guess I'm going to ask you two questions now. I'd like to know what your role is within the company. Obviously, you're the co-founder, but I know you're also the chief product officer.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and I guess the second question is, I know based on what you said that you're going for you almost want to preempt the disease before it happens, somewhere along the lines. What are the current applications of your technology?
So, so just to answer the first question. So yeah, that's right. So I'm a co-founder of ZiO, and, we're still a small organization. And so we tend to split up, like with any startup, you tend to do kind of far more wide ranging different things than, in a larger company. So, you could say I almost focus more on the roles that that are applied directly, that I really am well suited to. So you could say I'm one of my strengths is creativity, right? So I do a lot of the wide ranging different roles that require a lot of creativity, I suppose. So effectively my title is Chief Product Officer, but like I say, you kind of tend to get involved with strategy, of course, and fundraising, and a bit of marketing.
So essentially.
Exactly, yeah. And and at the beginning, I was effectively doing electronics and bit of app development, prototyping, and it's kind of a few. Yeah, you just kind of end up wearing a lot of hats, particularly at the beginning. And then what was the second question?
The current applications of your technology.
Right. So very soon we are launching a new product called Alosia, and it's a home urine test and nutrition plan app. So you can effectively urinate on a test strip that will measure a number of different parameters in your urine, like your pH, so your acidity of your urine, the hydration levels, ketones, and vitamin C, and a number of other things in your urine. And then you can, with our app, receive test results and a personalized nutrition plan. So effectively, the app itself can be used to take a photo of the urine test strip, and it identifies the color change of a number of different sensor pads on the test strip, and will present to you those test results, and will take into account, we've built quite a clever algorithm which takes into account any of your pre-existing conditions. It will take into account any allergies or specific diet requirements, and then provide for you a personalized nutrition plan. And so you're able to do a test at home every week on a continuous basis and receive ongoing support towards whatever your health goal might be. So it's a solution that, particularly post-COVID, people are looking to get back in shape, you could say, and I think just generally people are very much more health conscious now, right? And so we're offering this as a solution to kind of really provide very high level expert support to people on that continuous basis, and in a very unique and very tailored and personalized service as well. So
interesting.
And
sorry, go on.
Yeah, and then I was just going to touch on some other applications. So we are also we're using our proprietary technology. We are working on a project with a world famous university in the US. So I can't mention too much about that, but we are, the product itself is a therapeutic drug monitoring device. It's a device used by doctors to test the blood of their patients at the point of care, and they can use this to give very specific dosage of therapeutic medication to their patients. But actually, the technology itself, as I mentioned, it can also apply in saliva. So it works. We've got another project for a roadside illicit drug test device. So that's for police testing drugs. And then there's it can be applied to kind of testing contamination in water, might be farming or rivers, or, different things like that.
Cool. This all sounds very impressive, and it sounds like a lot of work. But also sounds very specialized as well. How, within your industry particularly, is there a lot of competition? Is there such a competition, or is it, how do you guys work together to ensure this kind of comes to market? Because it's not, like I said, it's not like software. It's not like an app doing exactly. Right. So how does that work?
So we are partnering with a number of different research groups on these multiple projects. So that's one way we approach it. I mentioned this US university, but we also have partners in New Zealand and Hong Kong, and another company in America and also in Europe. So this is kind of how.
So these are predominantly research collaboration.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Excuse me. Yeah, so these are predominantly research collaborations. So each partnership is working with at least one different application of our technology. So that's kind of how we're able to work on multiple things at the same time. Yes. So effectively, that's kind of how we function.
Regarding the competition.
Oh yeah, that's right. So so in terms of the competition, so the diagnostics industry has been largely focused on laboratory testing to date. So if you look at the products that are available in the home, it's been quite limited. If you look at the past, 50 years or so, we've had, pregnancy devices, we've had tests for, glucose, for people with diabetes, and a handful of other products. And I think the thing is with, one reason why that might be is because of the technology that has been predominantly being used isn't necessarily very well suited to home environments where there's and used by the general public. Often the technology has to be used in a very controlled temperature environment and has to be potentially kind of mixed with multiple different chemicals to ensure a reliable chemical reaction. And so a lot of this kind of technology has been very limited to hospital laboratories to be operated by specially trained laboratory technicians. And we're seeing now a growing number of mail to laboratory business models and businesses. So you can test your ancestry at home. You can test, I think STDs, sexually transmitted diseases at home. You can test, look at your biome, and send a stool sample, and so these kind of this is you could say this is almost the era where we're kind of entering into now. Last 10 years or so, I think this has been growing significantly. These kind of mail postage to laboratory kind of business models, and we do see the technology advancing, which is why we will see more companies like my company ZiO Health enter the space of portable diagnostic testing devices. But it is very, very challenging. The technology is very sophisticated, and so I think probably, over the next 10 years, we'll see a lot more companies like mine as more innovations are uncovered and more scientific progress is made.
Oh, interesting. You said that a lot of companies might kind of spring up. I just want to know what your experience was like regarding government regulation. You had already mentioned something about the investors kind of going at you guys and going, okay, are you guys legit? That sort of thing. So what have been the hurdles you've had to kind of overcome to get to this point?
That's a very good point. So in terms of the the regulatory process, it is very stringent, and for our medical device in America, we're working with this university. That is a lengthy process. So currently we have this university research group is testing stored patient blood samples with our device. So there is kind of the step before clinical trials. So it's a lot about gathering data, and you can't rush that process. They are conducting tests on patient blood sample that has been already tested by the hospital laboratory machines, and are comparing the data from those laboratory machines with the data that is generated from our portable devices. And then they can make this comparison and draw a conclusion in terms of how reliable and accurate are our test results from this particular device anyway. So that process, it does take a long time, and they will be working on this over the next year at least. So, and then if that goes well, then it will be a move to the next step, which is potentially testing directly by the patient bedside with finger prick blood, so or some other method of blood extraction.
Sure. The journey to finalizing the finished product is what's a long one. Like I say, you've been doing this for like 5 years.
Yeah.
What has been the most frustrating thing, apart from the duration? I suppose. What's been the most frustrating thing about this journey? Even though I'm sure you love what you're doing.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that is a good question. I think the management of software is it's very well established. How you can read the Lean Startup, you can read all these different books and methodologies about how to manage how to manage software, I should say, and and how to prototype and build and test and learn from various different experiments and iterate your product and prototype very quickly until you reach your final one. When you're managing science, it's very complex, and that cycle of performing an experiment, looking at the test results, analyzing those, coming to some conclusion, redesigning designing the next experiment after that cycle is very slow, and in comparison to software, which can be done in a day, right? And the thing as well is often, with anything in hardware as well, there are a number more dimensions of things that can go well or things that can go wrong. So often it's a matter of when you're problem solving with hardware and science, you feel like you're getting close, and then you work on what seemingly is this last problem, and then you're working on it, and then you discover like 5 more problems, all in different directions. You then also, and then you go through each of those and getting to each one of those, and then so it's this kind of really complex thing where it's like you kind of keep on chasing the these different problems. So it just takes a very long time, and so the way we found to solve that is looking at how we can reduce this time of conducting experiments and really finding the answer to that problem we're trying to solve as quickly as possible. And that's often done with laboratory automation and training our science team. So I'd say that's probably one of the most frustrating things. It's very hard to kind of plan accurately and project when something's going to be done by.
Right, especially when you want to do it properly as well. And as you said, because you're dealing with health, you can't really take shortcuts. You're dealing with science, you can't really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Are you guys 3 co-founders? Or 2?
So there's 3 of us. So yeah, there's Neil, whose background is so he's a medical doctor in Shaolin, and his background is science, biosensing.
Right. How is that relationship? It's such a environment.
Yeah, so it's good. I think what's worked very well for us is the fact that we have quite different approaches to solving problems. So I'm kind of lucky to have met a lot of very impressive teams and startups along my journey, and it is interesting because you sometimes see a startup being founded by a group of friends who might maybe they don't have complementary skills, but they're very similar. And so they solve problems in a similar way, or they come at things in a similar angle, and that's great, and might make a smoother ride. But I think one of the advantages that we have is that the 3 of us approach problems from very different angles, and so sometimes that can cause friction when we trying to get something done. But actually, there's a real strength in that, and we were kind of, we identified that as a real strength quite early on, and I think that's how we've, being able to progress quite well. You don't want to be always saying yes, agree to each other. You kind of want to, constantly have this. You want to have this internal structure amongst the founders where you are able to challenge each other, and I think that will always create a culture that drives for continuous improvement and something better. So absolutely that makes perfect sense, because like you rightly said, friction is almost inevitable when you have different approaches, but when the common goal is to do exceptional work, then you've got to go through that fire, so to speak, to get to that end result. Financing, that's another kind of complex minefield to kind of navigate as well. How have you guys done on that front? As we said, Ternos is like the poster child for what not to do, and you're in the health industry, so it's like, so how has that journey been? Trying to get financing and support to yourself and that sort of thing. Sure. Yeah. So one thing is that we were quite lucky, I would say, in that we built the company and were already working on a prototype while I was at Imperial, in 2015. So I'd spend my free time going to the different maker spaces or hack spaces around London and using the facilities, or electronics or what have you. And then and effectively, we managed to build a prototype throughout that period, so that it was only maybe 6 months, or maybe less than that, 5 months after we left the after I'd finished my degree at Imperial, that we managed to raise investment from SOSV, which is a US venture capital firm or fund that own a number of accelerators around the world that support startups like us. So we were funded by them, and what that meant was that we were able to relocate to Shenzhen, China, which is the hardware capital of the world, and develop our technology there with that funding support from them. And that is a fantastic network to be part of. It's been really, really supportive, really, really great. And it's quite interesting, actually. I've seen that there's actually a handful of people from Imperial who have ended up being funded, through by SOSV. So there's, a few alumni there, which is good. And actually, that's how I first heard of them. When I was at Imperial, there was a presentation made by one of the by the founder of a ski wear. It was a kind of a wearable for skiing, and he basically told me about this amazing accelerator in China that can provide support, even engineering support and finance for hardware companies. And I thought, wow, that's fantastic. That's exactly what we need. So we basically were managed to raise funding that way, and that 4-month period turned out to be a 3-year period for me, where I stayed in Shenzhen, China for that kind of period of time. And one of the reasons for that is actually because it's so you can do stuff in Shenzhen. You can make things and prototype things super quick. And imagine you have Borough Market, that normally sells in London, that normally sells, fruit and veg at all the different food stalls. Replace the fruit and veg and put in electronic chips, light bulbs, all kinds of different electronics, and that's basically like Shenzhen. So you're going around and you can pick and choose and buy all kinds of different things needed to build your hardware devices. So I was there for 3 years, and and it was fantastic and very low cost to live, which is exactly what you want if you're working on a startup, especially something like ours, which we knew was going to take a long time to develop. And it and then through SOSV, that exposed us to a large network in China, the UK, and the US, and a number of other investors, and we've managed to raise a number of rounds since then.
Fantastic. At what stage of funding are you at now? I know there's like round 1, round 2, like stage 1. Yeah, how does that even work? At what stage are you at?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It's often confusing because some industries, like if you're in software, you might have a seed round and then maybe a Series A and then a Series B and that kind of thing. In our type of industry, because we're a hardware company and so therefore need to raise money very early to fund experiments. Effectively we've raised a handful of seed rounds, and we'll be raising a Series A round next year. And we are just about to launch a an equity crowdfunding campaign. And
I saw that today on the Facebook group. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so what that allows all of our network to do is to buy shares in our company, ZiO Health, and it's fantastic because we've had so much support from so many people at Imperial and around London and, around the UK and, all around the world, all of our different partners, in all, various different countries. And so, because we're opening an equity crowdfunding campaign, anyone can invest in us, for as little as, £10, or, as much as they want. And be a real part of our journey, as we continue to grow. And as I mentioned, we're launching a new product, the home Alosio, which is the home urine test and nutrition app. We're launching that very soon. And so we're using the capital that we raise from this to help launch this new product, and accelerate, our growth into the future. So.
Fantastic. Your new product, when is it likely to be available? Or you can't speak about it?
I could speak about it. So, so effectively, we are launching the product in October this year. That's the plan at the moment, and we are actually currently making. Effectively, we're making available 40,000 tests to early access users who've signed up across the country. So we're actually making them available now, but the official public launch will be October this year.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you all the best for that. It's obviously very impressive work. It's not the face of hard. I suppose, just to round this up, what has been the highlights of your journey so far?
I think the people. I just think I've been very, very lucky to have met so many incredibly passionate, ambitious, kind people all along the journey, and it's made it, so much more enjoyable. It's been very challenging at, various different times. It's been very hard work, and I think, meeting so many fantastic people from all around the world, who've really supported us, and it's been fantastic, and it makes the whole, as I say, it makes the whole journey that much more worthwhile. So,
before we conclude this episode, please check out my new poetry collection. It's called Lonely Ways to Change the World. You can download it on wordslikethecode.com. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you will find the link in the description.
Fantastic. Obviously, we're going through strange times. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether the full bed was because of your work or because of COVID. I'm not entirely sure what the problem was. But how have you been coping during these last few months?
It's been obviously a very challenging time, for everyone. I would say I've been quite lucky because the last three years I've been based in China and haven't had so much of an opportunity to spend in the UK with friends and family. And although I haven't had a huge opportunity to see so many friends yet face to face, I have been staying with family throughout lockdown, and it's been fantastic. Well, I come from a very close family, and after quite a few years of really working very hard and away in China, it's been brilliant just being able to spend longer time with them.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
And you as well. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. I wish you all the very best with ZiO Health. I think I said it right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Stay safe. I think that's really important, and I'm glad you've been able to spend time with your family as well. I think that's what matters in the end, really.